Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA Podcast, episode 76.
Happy freaking Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday,
Cool.
and that means we're back again with another recap, this time for a pretty big card that happened Saturday night, UFC 259, 3 title fights, 1 new champion,
Yeah.
a lot to get into there, but since we are starting a new week, Dominic, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had a fun weekend. We had a couple friends come up. We got to watch the fights together, all hang out. We don't get to see each other as much anymore, so it's always nice when you have those
Agreed.
evenings together. Had a blast. There were 15 fights for like the third or fourth time
It was
ever.
long day,
night.
long night.
But well worth it. And yeah, now we're starting off another great week. And Noah, how are you? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was really good, man. I mean, it's always nice when, friends can come up and get to watch the fights. People, again, like you said, we don't get to see them as much as we would like or as much as we used to. So it's always nice to catch up with everybody. And since we all share a common interest in our love of fighting, it's a good way to spend some time together. But with that being said, it was an awesome night of fights Saturday. Prelims really kind of stole the show.
Yeah.
I mean, they were hard to live up to because they were pretty much almost every fight on that entire prelim, and there was 10 of them, was fantastic.
Yeah, well, there were like 6 finishes, I think, or 5 or 6 out of the prelims.
Yeah.
Great fights.
And, the main card couldn't quite live up to that, but I mean, when you have 3 title fights, I ain't going to complain, and it's hard because those prelims were so fun to watch. But obviously we're going to get into that. But before we do, it's time for the news.
The news.
One fight announcement to go over here, happening June 5th. Big matchup at heavyweight. Walt Harris is back, trying to overcome this 2-fight skid he's been on. And he's placed up against a guy who's kind of on the biggest run of his career right now, Marcin Tybura. Tybura back in the top 15. Especially with the recent releases of Overeem and JDS. So now he's kind of back in that 10 to 15 range. Walt Harris really trying to kind of salvage, his placement here. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, Walt Harris, number 10. Tybura, number 13. As you mentioned, Tybura's on a tear right now. 4-0 in 2020.
Yep.
On and all, he's just on a roll. And Harris, like you said, on a 2-fight skid. Very tough competition in both of those bouts, but still, you don't want to go down 3 in a row anytime in the UFC, especially in this heavyweight division where it's so hard to climb because so many of these guys have already fought each other. So this is a crossroads fight, it seems, for Walt Harris. And for Tybura, he's trying to get back into the top 10 for the first time in quite some time.
Well, it's kind of crossroads if you just look at both guys' kind of slopes right now. They're both kind of at that point where it's like, who's going to take over here? Because if Walt Harris wins, he kind of keeps his spot. He kind of gets that win back, able to kind of get back on track and move forward. While for Tybura, after kind of a mixed run of things over, the 2017 to 2019, 2020 comes back in a big way. 4 straight wins, capped off with a big win over Greg Hardy, a fight where he was hurt a lot early on, weathered the storm, and came back and looked fantastic in that second round. This is a step up. I mean, not that Tybura's fought some of the best in the heavyweight division. He even headlined a fight night with Fabricio Verdum, I believe, back in the day. And Walt Harris, he does kind of have some of those Greg Hardy traits, that power. But he is not necessarily... And he does kind of slow down as the fight goes on, but he is going to be a better fighter than
early on
Greg Hardy was. So it'll be a big test for Tybura to see, how legit is this run he's on, since the majority of the opponents he beat were at least, steps back. None of the guys he beat were really top 15 opponents. So now he's in the top 15 based on that win streak and kind of based off what he did before. And now he gets a real big test in Walt Harris.
Yeah, you said that's June, right?
June 5th.
Okay, so we got some time out. That should be big. Again, important for both guys in 2 totally different aspects of their career. So I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, for sure. That's all for our fight announcements. But as for the rest, really only one headline that's kind of taken over right now. And it's kind of an unfortunate one. Still a lot coming out about this, so
Yeah.
maybe not get into too much of the details on it. However, it appears Dan Hardy is no longer commentating for the UFC. What are kind of your thoughts there? Because Dan Hardy was, out of all the commentators, I really like the guy.
Very intricate details.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's fight breakdowns are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
As far as his commentating, I would never say he's one of my favorites. I like him. I like their whole everybody they have doing commentary. But he had made some headlines with the verbal altercation he had with referee Herb Dean.
Yeah.
Because he was protesting Herb Dean's a couple late stoppages that he thought Herb had, and that was one of those cards that might have been on Fight Island.
It was Fight Island. That now that I think about it, that might have been like a strike one.
Well, you remember in
because Dana was not
Dana
happy.
got asked about that, and he said that like none of my employees are to talk to the referees like that. Like, you will be fired if you do that. Definitely sending a message to everybody, but most importantly, he was sending a message to Dan Hardy, and now you see Dan Hardy's no longer working with the company. The details are a little hazy on that. Dave Meltzer did report, I'll just put it out there, that he reported it had something to do with perhaps some sort of verbal altercation that took place between Dan Hardy and a female employee on Fight Island. Right before we started recording, though, Dan Hardy's kind of tweeted out that is not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and he said it was essentially an argument over what he felt was a missed opportunity, maybe something they could have done on a broadcast or something.
Maybe something for him to get a fight or something.
Well, yeah, and he had been wanting to fight with the UFC. He had been wanting to make his comeback, a former title challenger back in the day. So it's all kind of just cloudy.
Yeah, right, I mean, he did hint in a follow-up tweet that he's got a YouTube channel that he does a lot of breakdowns on. That's really good.
Yeah.
And he also hinted at the fact that he works for MMA, therefore you might see him somewhere else, kind of was his hint. So it'd be very interesting to see him go to maybe a competitor like Bellator or ONE FC or even the PFL, maybe something like that.
You never know.
He's too good on commentary to not be picked up by somebody.
Yeah, as long as there's no serious things involved, which it doesn't seem there are, you gotta keep a guy like that with so much knowledge in the sport for the fans. Yeah,
I completely agree. But it is a shame. But good luck to him, and we'll be listening to him wherever he goes, I'm sure.
Right.
Besides that, though, that is the end of the news.
The news.
Before we get into our recap of our 9 fights, along with the prelim notables, we actually have a viewer message.
Yes. Back-to-back episodes, huh?
Yeah, back-to-back episodes. This is going to be a familiar name to you guys if you are frequent listeners. Tyler, good friend of ours, he was not able to watch the fights with us Saturday, but he did leave his thoughts on the 3 title fights, and you will hear that. And now,
UFC 259. Aljamain Sterling walks away a champion. I don't believe he has anything to hang his head about. Petr Yan should have known better at his level as a mixed martial artist and to throw an illegal knee. He should have known better. So as far as I'm concerned, Aljamain Sterling is the champion, has nothing to be ashamed of. Amanda Nunes, I don't think anybody's surprised by her performance. She's a dominant champion, and I expected her to come into this fight dominant, as she always does. The female GOAT, if not the greatest of all time, man or woman. And Jan Blachowicz, Polish power overcoming the Izzy effect. And Israel Adesanya talked in his post-fight interview about ruling with an iron black fist. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't rule anything. He got that first loss, and rightfully so. Jan Blachowicz, the man, the light heavyweight champion, continues his reign, and rightfully so.
Thank you, Tyler, for leaving your thoughts on Saturday night's 3 title fights. Very intricate thoughts for a man who had been drinking some liquor, from what he said.
Yes.
I told him, he said, no, I sound drunk as shit. I'm like, no, you actually sound very articulate in your thoughts. And I hope he can see that, hear that. But I think, we're going to talk about these 3 fights later, so we don't want to kind of go too much into detail on that. However, the interesting point I wanted to take away from Tyler's message was his thought, when he was talking about Adesanya, he kind of said Adesanya doesn't rule anything. Mm-hmm. Now, Adesanya is still the middleweight champion.
Right.
But there is kind of that, people are very...
They're quick to jump the gun. When someone like Izzy...
And I'm not saying that Tyler's doing this. This is just my takeaway from his message.
Yeah. Well, and it's just what we're seeing everywhere.
Yeah, so leading up to this fight, people were kind of saying Adesanya might be one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah.
And then he loses in the fashion he did Saturday against a great fighter in Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah, it's more so people not giving Jan
And now all of a sudden Izzy's never really was that good. You know? But he is still the middleweight champion, and I'm curious kind of what are your thoughts there? Like, do you feel like this loss is kind of being blown out of proportion?
Yeah.
For Adesanya?
I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, you got to look at what this guy's done at middleweight. Mm-hmm. He essentially is levels above those at middleweight, is what it seems. And he took a risk, comes up to light heavyweight, going for champ, that legendary status.
Yeah.
Falls short in a great back and forth fight. Mm-hmm. One we feel was 3-2. We'll talk about the fight more. But took the risk, fell short, and I like the humble in defeat. Was my biggest takeaway. For a guy that's very brash and not that he's cocky, but he's so confident and witty.
Yeah.
But he was quick to realize, you know what, Jan is a great champion. If there's anyone I would want to lose to with my first loss, it would be Jan. And so it was a great fight, and I look forward to seeing Izzy go back down to his weight class.
He did have to throw a couple jabs in there at Paulo Costa and John Jones while doing so.
Very
good one-liner.
Quick on his feet, isn't he?
Saying that, I couldn't sleep last night, but instead of doing wines or lines, I forget what he said after that. But,
and I was like, oh, damn, wait, two birds, one stone.
Yeah, I was like, I recognize both those references.
So, man... Shout out to Tyler making another appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, really enjoyed his thoughts. I definitely think what we're going to find is we kind of agree with the majority of what he said. But it was just interesting that, like, that does seem to be kind of the word is, like, now I think people are welcoming a rematch with Robert Whittaker when before they were like, well, why would he take that fight? While some people think, obviously the matchup Israel's kind of looking for is Darren Till. But Darren Till's got to get through Vettori. So we might not see Adesanya for a little bit.
Yeah, those fights are happening in April, so the middleweight division is going to play out here next month, and I think we'll see Izzy back in late summer, and we'll see who he's got to fight.
I will say what was answered to me most, since this isn't really relating to the fight itself, I'll just touch on it now. I don't think the fight with John Jones is ever going to happen.
No, I don't think we will ever see
even
that
though
fight.
Israel has said, like, no, I'll be back at light heavyweight, and I think he
will be back at light heavyweight, but he's never. I don't think he's going to be at heavyweight. You know, and John's not coming back down. From what I've seen.
And I mean, maybe I guess John maybe could, but he's really transforming his body
big as
right
shit
now.
Right now. If any of you guys haven't seen John right now in his Instagram stories and pictures, he looks like a different person. I mean, he's like 240, 245.
I never would have thought he could be.
He's
that
bulking,
big,
like powerlifting. So he's thick.
Yeah, and I think that was answered for me, and it definitely closed the door on potentially. I think when this fight first got announced, I was kind of talking. I'm like, okay, Israel might win this light heavyweight belt, and then he goes and fights John Jones at heavyweight. Mm-hmm. I don't see Israel ever competing at heavyweight.
He would have to change his body a ton. Even really to make a return to light heavyweight, I think he's going to have to transform into a light heavyweight frame. Just like if a Max Holloway ever goes back to lightweight, he will have to transform his frame rather than try it out one time and not truly be built into the weight class. And that's kind of how I am.
This was an interesting point brought up by Chael Sonnen kind of following the fights last night. He basically said, like, Israel kind of just went business as usual. He had just competed in September, or was it October? September. And then he's back here, 6 months later at a different weight class, 20 pounds heavier, but he didn't really take the time to, like, transform his body. Max Holloway doing something similar, while people kind of were, a lot of people don't like John Jones, and I'm not saying they don't have a reason to not like him, but there was a lot of people definitely kind of crapping on Jones a little bit for how long it's taking him to kind of take that fight at heavyweight, but it appears that maybe that's a smarter route to do here.
I'm a huge Chael Sonnen fan, his YouTube, and he always is talking about this experiment. And so on one side of the experiment was Izzy going up to light heavyweight but not really bulking, just kind of going in without cutting weight. For John, he's the opposite side of the spectrum where he's going up a weight class, but he's taking 6-8 months or however, it's been over a year since we've seen him fight now. But to really transform his body into the weight class. Mm-hmm. And of course, we won't know if that experiment works until he fights for the title. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
It will be, but I think that's enough about that because we'll have more to get into as well.
Yeah, Tyler, geesh. Taking up all of our airtime.
I know, exactly. No, appreciate you sending a message, my friend, and we will be seeing you here soon for 260.
Oh, baby.
Now, as for our recap of Saturday night's UFC 259, I'm going to go through the results first of the 9.
Yeah, we did fights.
9. A record-breaking performance out of us. So, starting at the top. Well, we'll just start. We'll start it. I'll go bottom top. Why not? We opened the prelims, so we broke down every prelim and every main card fight. We didn't do any of the early prelims. So starting at the beginning of the prelims, we had Kai Kara France, flyweight fight. Big comeback for him, getting the knockout over Rogerio Bontoran. 4 minutes, 55 seconds of the first round. Following that, you had a catchweight fight. This was at flyweight. Askar Askarov being the lone fighter on this card to miss weight.
Yeah, it came in at 127.
Yep, 2 pounds over. He does get the unanimous decision win over Joseph Benavidez, 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. Following that, back-to-back bantamweight fights. First, 2 prospects. Kyler Phillips edging out Song Yadong via unanimous decision.
Great fight, as
Great
expected.
Fight, very close. 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards. And then we capped off our prelims with Dominic Cruz.
Another great fight.
And yeah, it really was. The best bantamweight of all time. And Casey Kenny showing that he's no slouch himself. This ended up being a split decision, going 29-28 for Casey and then 29-28 for Cruz and ultimately a 30-27 for Cruz. As for our main card, start at light heavyweight. A fight that was a lot more technical than I think people are going to give it credit for. And when I say that, I mean like it was better.
Yeah.
Like this fight.
It was a good fight.
I thought this was a fight that could have really just been kind of a slugfest.
Yeah.
It had the potential to just be really fun.
But and it turned into a very strategic, battle.
Yeah, and you know what? For both guys, I would even go as far to say, however, Alexander Rakic does get the unanimous decision win over Thiago Santos. 29-28 on 2 scorecards, 30-27 on the third one. Then at lightweight,
oh man,
Islam Makhachev, the Habib's loins run
I
deep.
felt like I was watching Habib fight last night.
Yep, and he was dominant over Drew Dober, ultimately finishing the fight in the third round, a minute 37 in, with an arm triangle choke submission, but he did it on the wrong side.
Yeah, he did it from half guard. He didn't even get into the side control.
The shoulder pressure, man, impressive. Then our first title fight. This is going to be one we're going to be talking about.
Man, history was made, technically.
Bantamweight title on the line, and new. Aljamain Sterling defeats Petr Yan via disqualification.
Yes, the first ever title to change hands via disqualification.
Coming 4 minutes and 29 seconds into the 4th round. Co-main event. Women's featherweight title on the line. She's the GOAT.
Insert GOAT noise here.
She's quickly, I shouldn't even say quickly, but I mean, we made, our second ever episode was our top 10 of all time.
Yeah.
And she was like number 4 on mine. She might be number 1. I'm just being honest.
She's unreal.
Amanda Nunes finishes Megan Anderson 2 minutes and 3 seconds into the first round.
She got hit twice.
Yep, with a triangle armbar. And we capped off our night at light heavyweight.
Yep.
Jan Blachowicz.
Polish power.
Defending his light heavyweight title against the middleweight champion.
I love the fight. It was a great fight.
Via unanimous decision, 49-46 and then 49-45 on 2 scorecards. I think we'll have a lot to talk about there. Yeah. But before we even talk about these fights, we got to get into our prelim notables. And I'm going to let you start here, Dom.
Mr. Sean Brady is my prelim notable for UFC 259. A perfect 14-0 record now with 7 finishes. He submitted Jake Matthews in round number 3 last night after a dominant performance throughout. Held him on the ground, looked good on the feet, and Jake Matthews is a stud prospect out of Australia. And Brady just showed he was levels above last night. He really did. Dana White even saying in the post-fight presser how high he is on this kid now. And he's got a high ceiling. I do believe so. And so much so, he might just have to get a top 15 next.
I think you're right. I mean, welterweight's a great division. But Jake Matthews has definitely been a guy hanging around that right outside the top 15.
And he was streaking coming into that fight, too.
So I could totally see that being the next move for him. He already does have a win over a guy like Court McGee, a veteran, and it seems like the logical step is to really test himself with a top 15 opponent.
Yeah. How about you?
So I do want to say, like, the early prelims, since we didn't break them down, there were 6 fights. Really, pretty much every winner could be placed here. I mean, every early prelim except Tim Elliott, Jordan Espinoza
was a finish.
And there was so many takeaways. I think I'm going to have to go with what ultimately ended up being fight of the night. So I'm going to go with Kennedy Nchukwu and his knockout of Carlos Olberg. That came in the second round, 3 minutes, 19 seconds in. Nchukwu has been a guy that's kind of slowly been kind of finding himself here. You know, he's got a good record. He's 8-1. He's only lost coming to Paul Craig via submission. You know, Paul Craig already in the top 15 at light heavyweight. And this fight was bonkers. I think that's the best way to put it. Back and forth. Alberg being a guy that a lot of people are high on. I mean, his professional record coming into this fight was 3-0.
Yeah.
So obviously, this guy had a lot of hype behind him.
Trains with Izzy in Kai Kara France.
Yep. So a lot of hype behind him for that reason.
From the Contender Series.
And early on, it was showing. You know, Alberg looked fantastic. He looked crisp. And Nchukwu kind of had an interesting strategy of he was really letting Alberg land. But, like, none of the shots, they were so clean, but they weren't phasing him at all.
He was just eating them.
Yeah, and he just kept moving forward, and his pressure was incredible. And then he was landing a lot of really good shots. And honestly, Alberg just kind of folded under that pressure. And I got to just give him the shout out there because it was an amazing fight. Definitely fight of the night if you're going over the entire card. But Nchukwu does get a huge win, a win that was kind of a come from behind. And finished the opponent who a lot of people were high on. And he finished him in the second round. Huh? Yeah, dude. Alberg, as soon as that punch landed, it was done.
Folded.
And got to give him the shout out there. I was very close to going Amanda Lemos for this as well, so keep an eye out for her in the strawweight division.
She earned a ranking.
Yeah, she's 3-0 now in that division, so keep an eye out on her. Euros Medique as well, but those are our prelim notables. It was a tough night to pick them, even though we technically broke down 4 of the prelims.
And speaking of coming from behind wins.
Yeah, we're starting with that Kai Kara France knockout of Rogerio Bontoran. What were your thoughts here?
Why is Kai Kara France always in these just crazy one-round battles?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
1-round, 2-round battles,
just unreal. And, this one, he was getting beat up. He was getting dominated by Bontoran. Bontoran looked very good on the ground, was controlling him. Very close to locking in a multiple rear naked chokes, had the body triangle locked in tight. Kai was in a world of trouble, managed to get up, and then, man, he unloaded when they got on the feet, and he essentially got a one-punch walk-off.
It came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere with 5 seconds left in the round. He face-planted Bontoran and walked off like Mark Hunt used to do.
Yep.
So you don't see that often with flyweights, first off. So shout out to Kai Kara France. You can never count this kid out, and he showed why again, man. He really did.
Yeah, we both picked Kara France coming into this fight, and the reason being for that knockout power. If I want to be a bit, play both sides here, Kara France did show a lot of weaknesses in his grappling here. The submission defense was impressive. He did fight out of multiple chokes that looked very tight. That body triangle was maybe the hardest thing to get out of if you have your back taken.
He fought the hands well.
Yeah, everything. And Bontoran did look great early, and I know this loss has got to be a gut punch for him, but I think there was a lot of positive takeaways for him as well, because that grappling was very strong early on, and he looked like the stronger guy in there.
Yeah.
Slamming Kai Kara France down, being able to take his back so easily. But Kara France, man, the power in his hands is no joke, and that can really take him places in this flyweight division that obviously the lighter weight you go, the less finishes there typically are.
Yeah.
And for him, you're right. He is kind of in these wars all the time. He does like to kind of let it get a little sloppy, let it get hectic, and he does seem to do well in that kind of environment. He nearly finished our boy Brandon Royval in the first round. Royval did come back and win that fight via his grappling.
Yep.
So Kara France really is going to have to work on that if he wants to be a legit
That's
contender.
where their weakness is. Yeah.
However, with that kind of power in your hands for that division, he can definitely make some noise. He already kind of has. But
still young.
It was nice to see him bounce back, considering his last fight was to Royval. I'm a big Kara France believer. I'm a big fan of him, but I will say the grappling does need to be improved upon if he wants to be fighting for a belt or even competing with the top 5, essentially. Now, I'm curious, since we do have 2 top 15 guys here, what do you think is next? We'll go with the loser first for Rogerio Bontoran.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, these guys were tied for 8th. It's dumb. I don't know how you can be tied in rankings. But anyway, they were tied for 8th. So good news for Bontoran. He can't really move back very much. Yeah. He's just going to go to probably number 9. Mm-hmm. So, just a slight step back. And I would go Tim Elliott, man. Tim Elliott had a big win on the prelims. And I'd figure match them up. Elliott's a seasoned vet, fought for a title in the past. I'm unsure if Elliott and Bontoran have fought. I don't believe so because Bontoran's relatively new to the UFC. I think that'd be a good test for both guys. For Elliott to see if he's still got plenty of gas left in the tank. He looked damn good on Saturday. And then for Bontoran, a great grappler. So 2 grapplers going up against each other could be in for a fun treat there.
Yeah, I know. I definitely like that fight. I'm gonna throw a different name out there just to, be different. A guy that I'm really high on in this flyweight division, number 14 ranked Sue Matarese, a guy who's shown to be very effective on the feet and on the ground. And it would be another test, but Bontoran would not be able to only depend on his grappling, which I think would be interesting. Because, yes, he did get knocked out, but it came so quick that really Bontoran didn't really get to show any improvements he potentially made on the feet. I mean, I swear, as soon as they got up, it was like the first 2 punches Kara France threw knocked him out.
Yeah. So,
Matarese, I'm not sure if he quite has Kara France power. I mean, he's a big guy for flyweight.
He's so tall.
And but Matarese he's 4-0 in the UFC. He does have that submission win over Luis Moca, actually. So he's been kind of proven himself here, and then that knockout over Gordon that came 44 seconds into the fight. He did just win in January. I would like to see him get a test here, and I think Bontoran, not only would it test how good his grappling actually is, but see if he can really overcome that, even match Bontoran on the ground, which is not easier said than done. And if that size can play a factor, if his striking can play a factor against someone who is so seasoned like Rogerio Bontoran.
I like it.
Now our winner.
Yes, Kara France. Noah, there's a fun fight coming up at flyweight this weekend.
Yes, there is.
And that is between, hold on, I just lost it. Here it is. Mr. Manel Kape coming back very quickly off of his loss to Alexandre Pantoja in his UFC debut. He's taking on Matthias Nicola. And I think Mr. Kara France should fight the winner of this bout. Now, you may be thinking, well, hold on. Neither one of these guys are ranked. Kai's ranked number 8. Come on now, what are we doing? But I think that if Kape can win this, and I'm not doubting out Matthias, but I think Kape versus Kara France is an incredible fight and a huge name. And if you look at the division, who are you going to put Kai up against that's ahead of him? Schnell's taken. Moreno and Figueroa taken. Perez, I think, is too high up. He already lost to Royval. He's kind of in an awkward spot right now. Right. Do you put him with Pantoja? Pantoja just came off a win. Does he fight back again?
Let me tell you who I would place him up against. It's the one person you didn't mention that's ahead of him right now. Maybe not the kind of fight that people that are fans of this guy are going to want to see, but Joseph Benavidez did suffer a pretty tough loss to Askarov last night. If he does want to continue fighting...
That was my reason for...
I feel like you give Kara France as a reasonable step down compared to these guys like Figueiredo and Askarov that he's fighting at the top. Kara France does have power. So that's definitely going to be something that's going to be risky for Benavidez because he, we'll talk about it when we get into his fight, but definitely his chin's not holding up too well as we get into this late part of his career, the twilight, essentially.
Yeah.
But Kara France's deficiencies in his grappling could really lead Benavidez to potentially have a big route to victory here and a way for him to kind of go out on top like he's talked about. So I think it's a great fight, and Benavidez, he's going to drop maybe a spot or two. He'll still be in the top 5. So if Kara France wins that, he does insert himself into the top 5, and then he can really try to test himself against some of these other opponents up there like Perez, Askarov, Pantoja. That's what I would go with.
I like it, and it really segues us right into Joey B and Askar.
Yep. So I think the big takeaway for this one, obviously Askar does get the win here. Unfortunate that he missed weight, 2 pounds. Benavidez looked slower. He looked less crisp. He didn't quite look comfortable.
Yeah, it was an odd bout. Yeah. I don't know. Askar looked really good, though. I mean, his pressure was relentless for 15 straight minutes. He's very crisp on the feet, had good takedowns, really good clinch control up against the fence. And Joseph just really couldn't find the range. He couldn't find the shots to land. And that's what it ultimately came down to. Askar even got a 10-8 round for one of the judges. Or was it all unanimous for all the judges had a 10-8 round? So.
Or no. I think it was.
Or one judge, yeah. So I think it was more to say about Askar, really, because at this point in Joseph's career, he is getting older. And it's like, do you have anything left to prove? He's done so much for the sport, for this flyweight division. It would have been great for him to go out there and win last night, but, it just wasn't his night. And for Askar, that was his biggest win and continues his unbeaten streak. So that's more so my takeaways for the winning side, I suppose.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely thought Askar looked good, but I think that he won the fight by doing what I thought he would do. I mean, his grappling's really good, and that showed. And I thought Benavidez, we both picked Joseph to win this fight. I thought Joseph could at least... I thought his grappling was going to be good enough to at least be able to defend the takedowns and stuff, but really wasn't able to. Askar did hurt Joey on the feet.
Landed a lot of clean shots.
He did. I didn't quite see anything out of him that was... It didn't really answer anything. It didn't really... He kind of looks the same as he did. I mean, it was a good performance. I don't want to take anything away from him. But you combine kind of... I mean, he did miss weight. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to give him a title fight off of this, if I'm being honest.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of do that, but I just want to see him be tested on the feet or somewhere, and I know that eventually you just got to let him go for the belt. However, we do have a title fight at flyweight coming up with Moreno and Figueiredo.
Yep.
But it won't be for another...
June 12th.
June 12th.
Yep.
So I think Askar is going to need another fight before he steps in there, because that could potentially be another war, and then you're looking at 2022 before you're fighting for a belt. I'm placing him up with Pantoja.
Yeah.
Pantoja getting that big win over Manel Cape did show a lot of fluidity on the feet. He is a good ground fighter as well. I think it's a logical fight to take. Probably not what Askarov's going to want to do, but it's at least something I'm offering right now because, unfortunately that title picture is kind of taken up until June 12th.
I'm giving it to him. I think he holds out. He has nothing left to... I don't know. He's just fought so many of these guys, and the lone blimp on his record, even though it's not a loss, was against Moreno. So I just really want to see the potential for that rematch to happen. But again, Moreno's got to get through Figgy. I think either way, Askar's next in line, an undefeated record, going to move up to number 2. Has a big following behind him. Had Habib giving him shout-outs on Twitter and everything. A para-Olympic, he's fighting deaf, as you mentioned in the preview. So to see what he's doing at the highest of levels so successfully with really not even getting touched in some of these fights, I think he's ready, man. So it's just a matter of, do you want to wait? Because, like you said, that's in June. We're talking minimum late summer, early fall, maybe even late fall, depending on how much of a war that could be. But I'm going title shot next for Askar.
It might make me a bit biased here, because when Davis and Figueiredo missed weight for the title fight with Benavidez, I didn't mind that they just ran it back right away. However, Askarov missing weight here, he's not going to be like a huge draw for his first title fight, whether it's against Figueiredo or Moreno. So I wonder if the UFC is even willing to take that risk on a guy who just missed weight. I know it's not something he's done a lot, but it's unfortunate that it happened because that does play a factor. You know, you've had these big title fights that have essentially scrapped the title part out because a guy couldn't make weight. Yoel Romero being a good example.
Can we rely on you to make it?
Yeah. So I just wonder, is it going to be worth the risk? Because Askarov's not necessarily going to be bringing in a ton of pay-per-view buys. I'm not saying that should play a factor, but you missed weight. You still dominated the fight. Looked great. I'm just saying maybe one more. I know that's hard to do because he is literally right there. But I think if the title picture was open, I would say go ahead. But since you got till June before you even have a clear flyweight champion again, I don't know. It's tough for me to really do that.
I'll be curious to see how they play it with him. I really am.
Yeah. On the other end, I already said Benavidez. If he's going to keep fighting, I think Kara France is logical next step. I know you might feel a little differently just because you're kind of...
I think it's just time. Hang him up. And that's not even like a slight or disrespect. I just think he's done it all. And he knows that, the title shot's not there anymore. It's been acknowledged. I mean, he's had 4 title fights now in the UFC, 0 for 4. But you look at everything else he's done, and he's beaten everyone else that there is to beat.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to ride off into the sunset, man. Just started his own podcast, actually, with the lovely Megan O'Leary, his wife. So wish them the best of luck there. And, I think it would be cool to have Joey B play a factor in the commentary team. To be honest, I think he's well-spoken, very knowledgeable.
I'm surprised we haven't seen that out of him. I mean, we've seen a lot of these guys that are still fighting. Obviously, the big ones, Daniel Cormier, then Michael Bisping. But you even see guys like Alan Jouban, Walt Harris, Anthony Smith, really taking on roles, kind of not necessarily doing direct commentary, but they're doing the UFC lives,
the post shows. Yeah.
And it would be. I think he's got his wife is literally. The main female voice for the UFC. And he is a very articulate guy, very likable.
He's a seasoned vet.
He's got a
brings a lot of experience.
And he's also got all the respect in the world from the backstage crew and all the fighters. It seems like a logical step.
I would love to see it.
Maybe it's just not really what he wants to do.
That could be true.
Podcasting, though. Hey, I'm not going to tell him it's a bad idea.
That's right. At Home with Ben O'Leary. That's what it's called.
Nice.
Pretty cool name.
But yeah, I totally, if he's done, I wouldn't blame him either. I mean, when we were talking about Overeem, how he's one of the best fighters to ever win a belt, you got to put Ben.
Oh yeah, 100%. Joey B's right up there, man.
4 title fights, man. It's tough to just never quite get that one, but I mean, he's going up against some of the best ever when he's going in those matches. So it's
crazy. 2 fights with DJ, 2 fights with Figgy, and he fought with Dominic Cruz back in the day, even in WEC. So. He's been there and done it all. Really a pioneer for the lighter guys, too, when they weren't as popular, especially back in the day. And he put them on their back and went to war, man. So, shout out to Joseph Benavidez.
Moving on to bantamweight. The 2 basically most promising up-and-comers of this bantamweight division going at it.
They delivered.
They did. Kyler Phillips, Song Yadong, great fight. Kyler Phillips being the one who was unranked. Song Yadong ranked 14th coming into this fight. Kyler Phillips edging out the scorecards. Very close fight. I think me and you actually watching it live. Beers a flowing. Scored it for Song Yadong.
Yeah.
But
so much so that they started announcing the winner. and I was like, Song! But he literally said Kyler. And I was like, oh. Well, my hands are already up.
Yep. But Kyler Phillips does get the win here. And I guess, what were your thoughts kind of on this fight?
Everything I would have thought. They went to battle, man, on the feet, standing. Kyler, doubled the output in round 1 of Yadong. Yadong doubled the output in round 3 of Kyler. Round 2, dead even.
Yeah.
Both guys had ground control time. They did it all, man. I'd freaking love to see them run it back. But incredible fight. Very excited for both these guys. Song was on a 6-fight win streak coming into this. Kyler puts a halt to it. We'll get a ranking in the process because Song was ranked 14th. What do you think is next for Mr. Kyler Phillips, Noah? The hair was flowing.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kyler Phillips first, since he will probably be inserted into the round number 14, I would say. He did show a lot to me on this fight. He does his nickname is Matrix for a reason. The guy's really good on his feet.
Yeah.
But he did show at least he showed that he's competent on the ground. He showed that he can go to the ground. And, it's tough because kind of these few names ahead of him, a lot of these guys just fought. So maybe there is a guy that he could be going up against here. I'm actually going to go with Rafael Assunção.
Ooh,
number
interesting.
9
ranked.
Okay. Talk about a veteran.
That'd be a hell of a fight.
Guy who's fought everybody, but a guy who's also on his way out, essentially. He's in the twilight of his career. That's what I should say, instead of on his way out. He's kind of fighting for his career at this point. Assunção, we last saw him getting knocked out by Cody Garbrandt last summer. We haven't seen him since, so if he's still wanting to compete, which I'm assuming he is because he hasn't announced any sort of retirement or anything, UFC hasn't cut him. Kyler Phillips, the young, hot up-and-comer, why not place him with a seasoned vet like Assunção and see how, Assunção's not necessarily a guy that's going to keep it on the feet either. So that could really test, Kyler Phillips' jiu-jitsu game and really just his grappling defense as a whole. So I think that could be really fun.
I like that. I'm going to drop one ranking lower. Jimmy Rivera coming off that loss. Now, this is, of course, if they don't do Jimmy and Pedro again, because I'm all for the trilogy on that one. But if they don't, Kyler Phillips, Jimmy Rivera. We've seen Jimmy Rivera just went to war with Pedro. Kyler just went to war with Song Yadong. Put those two together, they might go to war with each other. But
Right.
There's potential for Jimmy to test Kyler on the ground even more. Very high-level wrestler in himself. I think that'd be a strong test to see, okay, Kyler's good, only one loss. Beat a ranked Song Yadong. If he gets a win over a guy like Jimmy Rivera, we're really starting to see the upside in a guy like Phillips. I think that'd be a fun fight. What are your thoughts for Song?
So the road is a little less clear for Yadong here because, your take, what you say, in the 6-fight win streak and all that. But I see it from a different point of view. It's kind of the latest misstep. And a guy who is only 23 years old. He's literally our age. Well, my age. You're almost there. However, he's a guy that has so much promise, so much potential, and he's really risen so quickly. But if you go back, these last 3 fights, essentially. Start with Cody Stamen fight. That was a majority draw.
Yeah.
That one happened December 2019. You follow that up with a win over Marlon Vera.
Controversial.
Very controversial. I thought Marlon Vera clearly
And that was a
fight.
featherweight because it was short notice, too.
But I thought Marlon Vera clearly won that fight. And really, the fact that it was at featherweight should have played into Yadong more so because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And Marlon Vera is very comfortable at the bantamweight division. And then he loses here to Kyler Phillips. Again, this is kind of like Macy Barber, who we just talked about. He's so young. And he's already got so much hype behind him.
There's so much potential still
ESPN,
there.
when they released their ESPN
Top 25,
MMA, the
under
top
20.
25 under 25 fighters, he was number 2, I believe. And, it's just showing that he still has some work to do.
Yeah.
But these last 3 fights, it's just kind of like another misstep. So if I'm booking for Song Yadong, I think he fights another guy out of the top 15. Kyler Phillips, obviously out of the top 15, but he was a guy that was ready for that step and was a guy that, he could very well already be a top 10 bantamweight.
Well, dare I say I may have the perfect matchup for you then.
Who's that?
What if he takes on Casey Kinney?
Yeah.
Lost to Dominic Cruz, but right there for
That's-
ranking.
Actually, that might be perfect.
Both coming off losses on the same night. That could be fun as hell, man.
Or Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah, either one of those two guys would be great matches.
No, that's actually perfect, though. Casey Kinney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
book that.
I know we're about to get right into it, so we're going to segue again. But Casey Kinney looked very strong showing against Dom, and Yadong was strong showing against Phillips.
Yeah,
man.
these are probably 2 of the closest fights on the card.
Yes, for
So
sure.
we'll go ahead and segue into that fight. Dominic Cruz does get that split decision over Casey Kinney. Probably a lot closer of a fight than we thought it would be.
It was close. I felt it was still unanimous in my eyes in terms of I felt it was clear. I was shocked a judge had Casey winning, even though it was so close. But,
Well, I was actually more shocked that a judge gave all 3 rounds to Cruz.
Yeah.
So does that kind of explain my thought? Because
Yeah.
I remember, I think on Friday's episode, I said I see this being a 30-27 for Cruz.
Yeah.
I had it 29-28.
Yeah.
So I was more surprised that a judge gave all 3 rounds to Cruz than a judge giving it to Kenny.
It was so razor close.
Obviously, I wouldn't have given it to Kenny. I scored it for Cruz.
Yeah.
But it was a very close fight. I think the split decision is fair. I don't know. People kind of get weird about stuff like... Do you ever see those kind of comments online where a fight happens and it's so close and it'll be a unanimous decision and people will say, that should have been a split decision? What do you mean?
It literally comes down to the opinions of 3 people.
Shouldn't if one person... We thought... Like, if Kenny had gotten a win here, I would have been like, I mean, I see it, but... Like, I don't understand why people are... Like, either way, it doesn't matter if it was a split or unanimous.
Yeah.
One guy wins the fight.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything for the loser to have a scorecard go in his favor. What were your thoughts, though? That was just kind of a side tangent.
You know, Dom still got it. The movement and everything, the head movement, the unorthodox style that we love so much is still so prominent. Shout out to Casey Kenny, though. Looked good. By far his biggest jump in competition, biggest name. As we said on Friday, Dominic Cruz is not the 11th ranked bantamweight in the world, and he showed it again here. And I'll tell you what, you have to do Dominic Cruz and Frankie Edgar. You have to do a legend fight, man. They've never fought each other. Neither one likely going for a belt. Dom's interested in legacy fights or just, you know, in terms of last night, stopping a hype train of a prospect, apparently. Mm-hmm. And I think Dom Cruz and Frankie Edgar, man, give that for the fans. Us guys have been watching for a long time, respect both of these guys. And I'd love to see Frankie go out not on a flying knee KO. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Not that maybe Dominic Cruz could pull one of those out of his hat too, but I think that'd be a really fun scrap. 2 guys that have never fought before and just legends of the UFC, and it'd be fun as hell, man. That's what I'm calling for, 100%. And Casey Kenny, I just mentioned. I think him and Song Yadong is perfect.
Yeah, Cruz looked fantastic. He looked just as good as I thought he would, and I actually appreciated that he was willing to kind of step in the pocket and slug it out at times.
Yeah.
You know, I figured Casey would be willing to do that, but Cruz, you know, you go back to when he lost the belt to Garbrandt, he was very reluctant to do so, and I know Cody's power is next level for this division. But it shows maybe some growth in his game, because even against Henry Cejudo, he was trying to completely stick on the outside, use his movement, and just kind of stick and move. Yeah. Here, he would kind of plant his feet, throw a few bombs, and then get out of there. And you know what? I appreciate that even at his age, you know, he's 35, not old, but
a guy that's been through the ringer.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fight years on him. I appreciate that a guy is willing to kind of step in there and, you know, show some evolution in his game a little bit. And he looked good doing it. He did. I mean, these guys both kind of landed good shots on one another. I wouldn't say either guy really got hurt in the fight. You know, there was no real, no point where any guy, got dropped or, you know, got rocked or anything. But they were landing really clean shots on one another, and I think that speaks to both of theirs longevity. Yeah. You know, Cruz, the guy can still go for a few more years if he'd like. You know, I don't necessarily know if he should, but he could. And I think the matchup with Frankie Edgar makes a lot of sense.
Isn't that fun?
I mean,
a fight fan.
I think after, I don't know if it was last week, must have been, I think I had actually said Jimmy Rivera should fight
the winner,
Frankie Edgar, I think. I might have said Marlon Moraes. I don't remember. But I think Frankie Edgar, Dominic Cruz, legend fight.
Do it for the fans, baby.
And just so we can, if Cruz wins that fight, just so we can get him out of this below number, the top 10. I just think that's ridiculous. Yeah. I almost said Rob Font, just to say.
I mean, the guy literally, his last fight was a title fight, and now he's 11th.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I had to give another name, it would be Rob Font.
That would be funky.
Because I know that the ranking-wise, it would look weird, but think about it like this.
But it really does
Sterling
make
and
sense.
Jan are going to run it back, which we'll talk about. Then you got Sandhagen, who's probably going to fight Dillashaw. At least we hope so.
Please.
So Rob Font, and then I want Cody and Garbrandt to fight Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
So Rob Font's just kind of stuck here at number 3. So actually, you know what? I'm going to go that route. I want Dominic Cruz to fight Rob Font.
That'd be a hell of a fight.
That's the fight I'm going to go with.
That'd be a great fight.
And
for Rob Font, that's a huge name.
Considering before, if this was the Cejudo fight that it took place, I was very reluctant to place Cruz with an up-and-comer or a guy that didn't quite have name value to him, just based off of some of his comments and kind of where he's at in his career. But after taking a fight like this with Casey Kenny, to me it shows that he is wanting to really make another run, and he is kind of willing to take a step back, recoup, and then move back ahead.
And Rob Font's dangerous.
And he is not the number 11th ranked band. Okay, he is. But he is not the 11th best. He is definitely in the top 5 discussion.
Yeah.
Give him number 3, Rob Font.
I love it. And if you're Rob Font, even if he were to lose a fight to Dominic Cruz, it's Dominic Cruz.
Exactly.
You're not going to get, butchered all the way to the back of the line all of a sudden. And if he were to win that, just add another name to the list
the
while
biggest
he's waiting
name,
on
the biggest name he's beat. I know the Moraes
a fight like that, forget what the number is next to their names because it makes sense. You know what I mean?
It's just like when Cejudo beat Cruz.
Yeah.
That a lot of people thought that was a validated win because of
Dominic Cruz.
It's Dominic Cruz.
Yeah. I like that.
So that
nice, Noah.
Yeah. You know what? I'm proud of myself there. That's our prelims. Onto the main card, a fight that you broke down here.
Yeah. I must say,
Alexander Rakic, Thiago Santos, you predicted it correct.
I was pretty close. I thought Thiago was going to be a little more aggressive.
Yeah.
But overall, fun fight. Like we said at the beginning, we're fans of some technical striking.
I am, and I there was a lot of chatter online that suggested this fight was boring. I didn't think it was at all. I thought considering that when Thiago fights, it usually does turn into slugfest and a lot of power shots, and this was a little bit. Both guys were very reserved, very technical, and I appreciated it.
See, I expected that out of Rakic.
Yeah, Rakic
Thiago
for sure
fought a lot smarter and less aggressive than what I thought. Not that that's a bad thing. But I thought he was going to come in, man, go for the kill like he always does.
That's usually what he does.
And maybe he kind of learned from the Glover fight. It's not the best strategy. I mean, he had Glover hurt multiple times, but he gassed very quickly.
Yes, he did.
And then got dominated on the ground. We saw it. It might be Rakic. Whatever.
It's Rakic on this show.
We're going to just say Rakic. We saw Alexander, I'll just say his first name, did to Anthony Smith on the ground. Maybe Thiago was kind of nervous if he got gassed, he'd get taken down and controlled. I don't know, but overall, I enjoyed the fight. No
I did
slander
too.
Here.
No, I'm definitely not. And actually, surprisingly, I have a lot of good things to say about the loser here, Thiago Santos. I know.
I'm happy for him.
Don't get me wrong. I know I'm biased. He's one of my boys. He's one of my favorite fighters that's currently competing. But even though he lost here, and I would say I think I had a 2-1 Rakic, but he showed me a lot here in his technique. Santos was never a guy that I looked at as being the most technical fighter. I thought he was quite good at his explosiveness, his power. Before the John Jones fight, that guy was throwing crazy wheel kicks and spinning back kicks and things like that. And you don't see that for a man his size.
He's a freak athlete.
So then here, he was more reserved. Maybe a little too much so. Maybe he was, and I think that might be the problem, was he was kind of fighting like Rakic. He was almost imitating Rakic.
Yeah.
But Rakic has always fought like that.
He's so unique.
So I enjoyed what I saw out of Santos. Maybe should have seen a little more urgency, especially once he was probably down in the fight. But for Rakic, I mean, huge win there. And what's next for him, you think?
Winner of Yuri and Dominic Reyes.
100%.
For a number one contender
100%.
fight.
100%.
It's not an option.
I told you, because you said that to me before we started recording. Yeah. I said, well, let's see how that fight goes. Because that probably does play a factor, This was a good win for Rakic, but if, let's say Dominic Reyes starches Jiri,
or even vice versa.
Or if Yuri goes in there and knocks out Reyes
in
less than a minute, then you're probably looking at Jiri as getting the winner of Blachowicz to Sheriff.
And that's the thing, too, where there's a time frame here where, Jan's going to fight Glover for sure. So, do you hold a guy like Rakic if he earned it? Do you hold a guy like Yuri and Dom? That's in, that was originally supposed to happen in February. That got moved to the end of March? Or
probably beginning of April.
It might be in April. So, it's coming up soon, nevertheless. I just think you match up Alexander with either one of those two guys, I think you're going to see a hell of a fight.
Yeah,
I think Yuri and Dom's going to be a hell of a fight.
I'll agree with you for the winner, especially since Blachowicz and Teixeira will be the fight at light heavyweight.
Rightfully so, by the way.
Yeah, but I could totally see them giving Rakic be like the fill-in for that fight, the backup.
Yeah, you could even potentially do that.
Depending on if Reyes Prohaska ends up being like a war or something. Yeah. But yeah, Rakic's in a good spot, but I think it's going to take one more to get the title fight.
I agree.
Now for Thiago. So this is his third straight loss. I don't count the John Jones fight as a loss. However,
true.
We are kind of in the minority on that fight, even though it was a split decision. Compared to the Reyes-Jones fight, more people think that fight was close.
And we just think they both were.
We thought they both beat Jones. But Thiago here, he is in a tough spot because he loses to Jones for the belt. Then he loses to number 1 ranked Glover Teixeira. And now he just lost to
stud prospect and
number 4 ranked Rakic. So he's going to drop here. I have an interesting fight in mind for him.
I bet we have the same one.
Magomed Ankalaev.
Yep. Poor guy's going to have to fight 2 back-to-back killers.
Yeah.
Well, really, 4 back-to-back.
And, in some ways, this is because I want to see more out of Ankalaev.
Yeah.
Now,
I think it's a good test for him.
Don't get me wrong. Ankalaev has showed some great killer instinct in the past. That win over Jan Kudaleba, he looked fantastic. But he did leave a little something to be desired for that Nikita Krylov fight. He kind of looked like he was in...
he was cruising.
Yeah, he was in neutral the whole time. Just coasting a little bit.
Yeah, coasting.
And I think I want to see him tested. Thiago Santos, I think, will bring it.
I think that's a good fight for both guys. If Santos can win, that's a stud that he would beat, and a guy that's rising quickly. For Magomed, you're beating a former title challenger and a guy that's been there with literally all these dudes in front of you.
And it inserts you in the top 5.
Exactly.
And that's, a lot of people are very high on Ankalaev, and don't get me wrong, we're not saying we're not. The Krylov fight didn't really do it for me like I thought it would. I thought it would really do a lot for his career, and I think he just wasn't... Just didn't show enough in that fight, even though that's a good win, to tell me that, if Thiago wasn't on a 3-fight skid like he is, I may not give him this high of a opponent next, but 3-fight skid, Thiago's probably going to be 3rd or 4th now. I think it makes sense to, considering a lot of these guys ahead of Ankalaev are taken, Anthony Smith has already got a matchup. I think that's a good fight.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Now we move on to
the heir to the throne, potentially.
I will say for our second annual Joey's Awards. Yeah, you heard that right. For the second annual Joey's, Performance of the Year just got interesting.
Yeah.
Islam Makhachev. Flawless over Drew Dober. He does finish the fight in the 3rd round with that arm triangle choke on the wrong side.
There ain't no wrong side.
Elephant in the room. Dom tricked me.
No, I'm not. I'm not letting you manipulate the audience.
Dom bamboozled me.
Listen, Joe.
He knows that I am a big Drew Dober fan. He knows that the first live event that I ever went to, I immediately bought into Drew Dober and have followed him ever since. And he manipulated my emotions. He basically baited me into picking Dober on this podcast. You guys can go listen to it.
This is false.
Friday's episode, it's available.
You wanted it. And I just helped nudge you. That's all.
I disagree, but...
You knew you wanted it.
I disagree. I mean, I think you manipulated me, but it's fine.
You have War Dober tattooed on your chest.
Yeah. I did scream War Dober at the
I was wanting it at least once.
Yeah. However, Makhachev... Here's the thing. Dober is a great fighter. This was a good test for Makhachev. But it was a test that appears that he didn't really need, because... He might be top 3 in this entire
I felt
division.
like I saw Habib. He fights so identical to him. Habib's in his corner. This
was the fight that I definitely... If I missed on... obviously, we miss on fights. We don't get the winner right. But for the most part, I feel like we usually nail down how good or bad these fighters are going in.
It's all the research.
However, this is probably the biggest I've missed on someone in a while. I was definitely not as high on Makhachev as a lot of people. But here, that was scary how good he looked. And, Dober, again, was less of a test than, let's say, his original scheduled matchup with, like, Rafael dos Anjos. But he passes in flying colors and really just shows that he is a threat. And he's ranked 14th. I don't know if he'll go up after that because Dober was unranked.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to think that that's dangerous for everybody ahead of him right now because he might be
nobody wants
the
to fight
third.
him.
He might be in the top 3
Yeah.
as far as talent, but he's fighting at number 14 right now.
He could very well have that number next to him by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to start?
If he wants to stay active,
Of course. And you know what's going to start that path?
What is it?
Dan the Hangman Hooker.
Ooh.
Okay. Now listen, Hooker's a striker, and I get that because you're probably thinking, "Oh, Islam's just going to take him down." Come on, what are you feeding him an easy fight? Hooker's no easy fight.
No.
He's shown great takedown defense in the past. You saw that Chandler. Now, although he did win the fight by knockout, Chandler was never really able to find the range for the knockout. Hooker was very well prepared to defend that takedown, I should have said, rather. And I think Hooker would prepare just as good, if not more, so to defend a takedown against a guy like Islam. I think it's a huge test, and if you're the UFC, you're probably starting to realize, okay, Khabib's not lying, DC's not lying, this kid's for real. Let's bump him up here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he wants to fight Tony Ferguson. So before you give your prediction, I want to get your thoughts on him wanting to fight Tony.
Well, that was my prediction, but...
All right, there we go.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Tony Ferguson here.
Woo!
Tony Ferguson ranked number 5 right now. Tony losing back-to-back fights pretty...
Convincingly?
Yeah, I mean, convincingly is the right word. I don't think he was quite dominated by Gaethje.
It was more so the Oliveira one.
Oliveira was...
Yeah.
And that could very well be the same fate he would face against Islam Makhachev. But Tony is Tony still in my
Tony
eyes.
is Tony.
He no matter how much slower he gets or whatever, man. I know he's older, and I know that he is in that twilight of his career. He's not going to be fighting for a belt maybe ever again.
Still a threat.
Still a threat to anybody, and I think a young fighter like Makhachev, that could make for a very interesting fight.
Maybe it brings out
considering that
too.
Islam Makhachev is kind of the disciple of Khabib.
And Khabib and Tony never happened.
I think it's just interesting that would be an interesting storyline there. And truthfully, no disrespect to a lot of these guys, like, you know, even Dan Hooker. I just think it's denying him the inevitable.
Yeah, he's that good.
I think you're just slowing him down because he will probably not fight again until towards the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll go through Ramadan and such, so it
so
will
I
be
say
later.
A lot of this division will be shaken up by then.
Yeah.
But
we hope.
I wouldn't mind if Tony didn't fight until then because I think he needed time off after back-to-back kind of beatings he took.
It's quite an interesting matchup, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But don't get me wrong, Dan Hooker would be fun too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, I think he's ready for top 5 right now.
I don't disagree, man. He's a stud.
Next up, the first title fight. Here's
And
where things get a little interesting, right?
a little spicy.
Aljamain Sterling and New
Yeah.
via disqualification. First time, as you said, in UFC history. And now, I'm going to call bullshit again. Because we've differed on 2 fights on this entire card. You manipulated me into taking Dober. And then you take Sterling and I take Jan. And when Jan starts to pull away, this man knees a guy who was in full-on, like, not only were his knees down, his whole body was just, like, he was basically laying flat on the ground and he just kneed him in the face.
It was pretty nasty.
So, Sterling gets the win. And that means that head-to-head, Dominic pulls away even further in our predictions.
I predict these things.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the fight.
Let's talk about the fight.
Sterling came out like a bat out of hell,
Yes,
man.
he did, man.
I'll tell you what, that pace he was putting on was impressive.
And worrisome.
And I think those worries...
It started to show.
After round one was Sterling.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
He looked great.
Petr Yan was never quite... I mean, he was getting hit a lot. More than we've ever seen Petr Yan be hit.
I don't know if Jan was ready for that pace.
No. And Petr Yan is such a calm...
He's a sniper.
You know, okay, he also comes from Russia. So he has... Imagine having that kind of... That pace and that mentality and that, I guess, confidence of someone like Khabib or Islam Makhachev. But instead of being just world-class grappler, he's a world-class striker.
Yeah. He's unreal.
So,
you talk about crisp.
I will say his striking defense, very good.
Man.
Impressive. And his takedown defense.
Yeah.
Really, this guy's defense...
What was the number? At one point on the broadcast, Sterling was like 1 of 14.
Yep.
Woo! Yeah, but Jan's striking defense, like you just said, unreal.
Now, we did think Sterling could have went to the body a little more. Because Jan has a really good guard when it comes to... He kept his hands
very high.
Very high up on his head. But that usually means your body's left open.
Yeah.
Sterling didn't really take advantage of that. And really, after the first round, I thought the rest of the fight was at least going in Jan's favor. Second round, very close. Sterling came out again. Very fast still. But Jan started landing really good. And I think he dropped him in midway through the second rounds when he landed probably the cleanest shot he had landed up until that point.
So fast.
Dropped Sterling. And then... immediately after that, there was a difference in the fight. It's like you flip a light switch on. Yeah. Sterling's pace slowed down dramatically.
Round 3 was when the significant dip occurred. Yeah. Not that Sterling's slow pace is still faster than a lot of people's.
He was still landing quite a bit.
Yeah. He was very aggressive and still fast-paced.
But it turned into Jan kind of backing down Sterling.
And he was just picking his shots.
Yeah, and his hand speed.
Oh, my word. And the accuracy.
While Sterling might have had the actual speed, the leg speed, the movement.
Yeah. I think they said Jan was landing about 68%.
Yeah, while Sterling was about half that.
Yeah, crazy.
So, what ends up happening, though, is we get into the fourth round where, again, it looks like Jan could be in for a finish.
Near the end of the round, too.
Yeah, if the fifth round had taken place, Jan might have finished the fight. Because Sterling was definitely kind of starting to... fold, as I have already used.
He was getting more and more reluctant on just trying these lackluster takedown attempts because he was just so tired.
He basically just kept looking to clinch up.
Yeah.
There was even a couple clash of heads.
Yeah.
Like he was getting kind of sloppy towards the fourth round. Then Sterling is on his knees.
Was that going in for the takedown got stuffed?
Maybe.
I think.
Yeah. And Jan kind of just...
Holding his head down. Yeah.
And throws a brutal knee to the face.
Oh, man.
Which is illegal because...
Sterling was a downed opponent.
Yeah. So then
knee to the body.
So Sterling's obviously hurt by this. You get 5 minutes,
He tried to stand up. He was toppling over.
And fight gets called off. Sterling becomes the champion.
Well, and I guess I wanted to add, Mark Smith, referee, had warned of illegal strikes, or not of illegal strikes, but he had told Petr Yan he's grounded right before this had happened, which I think made it a little worse. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the ref is the one that rules it a disqualification or not, or no contest, which I didn't know that.
It could have been ruled a no contest if he thought that it was an accidental or...
And when Mark spoke to the doctor, he went up into his ear and said, I had just warned him that he was grounded, and he still did it, therefore it was intentional, which led to overall being ruled
Considering Mark Smith was the referee that was kind of being shit on earlier in the night, for his handling of, I believe it was the Euros Medic.
The late stoppage.
I think it might have been the very first fight of the card. One of these fights, now I'm forgetting. It was either Trevin Jones, Mario Bautista, or Euros Medic, Elon Cruz.
I think it was Trevin Jones.
I think that
was a late stoppage.
He was the referee for that fight and let Bautista take a beating before he stopped it. However, I thought he handled this fight very well.
He couldn't have handled it any better. And that's a tough spot. You don't want to be in a spot like that as a ref. In a title fight,
title fight.
You don't want to be involved in that.
So, I guess obviously, this fight needs to be run back.
Yeah.
Because now Sterling's the champion. And, you hate... Not that Sterling has nothing to be ashamed of here. I mean, the guy...
He can't help it. And he fought his ass off.
If that guy... If he... was acting there, then you know what? Give that man an Oscar. Because that was the best performance I've ever seen.
People are talking shit on him, and I don't like that at all, man.
No.
There were even people said the knee didn't land.
Excuse me?
What?
That thing rocked his whole world.
He damn near went to sleep.
I mean, it hit him in the eye. His eye was red.
Yeah, it was brutal,
Look,
man.
it's a shame that it happened, and I don't, it was very bad. But for Petr Yan,
I don't think he literally was like, "Oh, this guy's grounded. I'm going to knock the shit out of him."
Well, he lost his belt. Like,
yeah.
I can't imagine a world where.
And it seemed there was some confusion in his corner.
Well, he he asked his corner if he should hit him, and
one of the coaches seemed to say yeah. The other one was said to punch.
Yeah.
He threw the knee. One guy celebrated because he thought he won. The other guy was like, "Oh shit, we just got disqualified."
So I think. But when you are in this position, as Tyler said in his message, where you're at this level, you're a champion level fighter. You gotta know.
Err on the side of caution.
You gotta know that that's a downed opponent.
Maybe just do.
That's one of the most basic rules of the UFC, is downed opponent rules. I mean, and I know that the rules have changed a lot over the years when it comes to like if they put their hand on the ground, things like that.
But he was his
on
knees
all fours.
Yeah,
that's obvious downed opponent.
Yeah.
And he still threw it. I don't look at it, when you're in the moment.
Yeah, there's
you can have a momentary lapse in judgment.
Exactly.
There's a lot of emotion going on.
Yeah.
I will say his Twitter activity has also been very weird.
Started nice.
He apologized.
But then Merab
Valishvili, another guy
top
in the
bantamweight division, Aljo's partner,
he
tweeted out a
picture
pic
with Aljamain and said and new.
Yeah,
and then
Aljo had the belt
kind of gave him a bit of a.
He's like, "Oh, the champ's fine now."
Yeah.
That's tough.
But I do think this fight needs to be run back, and hopefully.
And now it's crazy because like Jan won the belt against Jose Aldo. Nobody thought he should be fighting him for a belt.
Yeah.
Aljo wins the belt from Jan, disqualification. It's like, do we even have a damn champion in this weight
the biggest loser in this whole affair is Corey Sandhagen.
Oh, 100%.
Because Corey Sandhagen
he can't get a title fight now.
He should be fighting for a belt, and not that fighting T.J. Dillashaw ain't a big fight. But when you have a title that you're missing out on because of this, it sucks.
Yeah. So, sucks for Corey.
Hopefully it's run back once these guys are able to,
Dana said
Aljo
was cleared.
So here's the weird thing. I slept on it, right? After watching these fights, I didn't want to think about it, considering I had drank a lot of beer. I'm still giving this fight of the night. And I feel weird saying that, but I'm still giving it fight of the night. I thought it was a great fight.
It was.
And I understand. I hate the way it ended, but I'm still going to give it to it. Both guys put it all out there for 4 rounds, almost all of 4 rounds. So that's ultimately why I'm going to give it fight of the night.
I respect that.
But yeah, it's just I feel icky.
Can you feel excited for a rematch though, being that the fight was relatively close? Like we said, Jans began to pull away, but I don't think it's something that Sterling can't take some notes on and come back better. You know what I mean? Well, I think he's going to chill out a little.
So here's my kind of 2 cents. The reason why I think the fight was even close was because of Sterling's pace in those beginning rounds. But ultimately, that's also what made the later rounds so much in Jan's favor. So if he slows it down, that might...
You almost think it just favors Jan more.
I feel like it might make the fight more competitive for the entirety of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that almost plays too much into Jan's favor as well, where I think that Jan would probably still kind of edge out every round. Mm-hmm. Rounds 3, 4, 5 might be really close, but I think rounds 1 and 2 would be not necessarily in Sterling's favor at that point. It would be Jan. Does that make sense?
I see that.
It could obviously not go that way. But that's just how I'm feeling right now. I feel like Sterling was his biggest, I guess, moments, was the pace he put on, and that allowed him to get Jan kind of backing up, and he was able to land a lot more because of that. But once you slow it down, his hand speed is incredible. I mean, the trips we saw him landing on Sterling, incredible. For a guy who's not necessarily a grappler, he made it look so slick.
He just didn't he just opted not to go down to top control.
Which I don't think he should have.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
He played a very, very smart fight up until,
I'm very intrigued as to when they will run this back. I'm going to go ahead and throw a date out. May, because there's no title fight in May. But hope,
It's pretty, that's still a quick turnaround.
Yeah. Aljo got cleared. 2 months. Anyway, I'm curious to see when they do it. And I'm curious to see how both of these guys will come into a rematch after.
It still makes me excited to watch it again.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just said it's my fight of the night, and it ended in disqualification. So that shows you how good it was.
Exactly.
Co-main event.
We got to talk about a GOAT.
Should we even talk about this fight?
We have to talk about the GOAT.
Yeah, Amanda Nunes making quick work of Megan Anderson.
The queen.
Quickly in that fight, Amanda landing those overhand rights.
Rocked the shit out of her.
I was getting Chris Cyborg vibes all over again.
Man, Megan,
you could tell Megan was like a deer in headlights. She felt that
as
power.
soon as that shot landed. Oof.
She did apparently land 2 shots. I didn't see them.
2 total.
Yeah, I didn't see them. And then Amanda, I believe, dropped her with the shot.
Yep.
And then went to the ground with her.
What a wicked submission.
So it was credited as a triangle armbar, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But,
she could have finished the fight 2 different ways.
As soon as she got that armbar in place, Megan was like, I'm done.
Oh, yeah. She was going to break her arm.
Or she was going to
go
put her
unconscious
to sleep and break her arm.
At the same time. Yeah.
She's literally the best ever.
She's unbelievable.
I will go as far to say right now, on episode 76 of our podcast, man or woman, she is, in my opinion, the best fighter of all time.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't, and honestly, like,
you got to look at her resume.
I definitely,
her resume.
I thought, when we did our top 10, I had people like GSP, Anderson Silva, John Jones in front of her. And not that you can't make that argument. Of course you can. I think I'd be in the minority in saying that Amanda's the best ever. However, my point in that video was that I'm not sure if Amanda can really keep getting higher on my list because she's beat everybody that would kind of credit. Like at this point, Megan Anderson doesn't necessarily boost her in that kind of all-time.
She's just racking up dubs.
But when I thought about it, I'm like, she literally, like, look at the odds coming into this fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what she's done in the last 6.5 years is nothing short of incredible. Heard a good comparison. She has not lost in the last 6.5 years. That was the... Yeah.
She was once 9-4.
Ronda Rousey's entire MMA career lasted 6 years.
It's crazy.
Amanda Nunes has not lost in that entire period of time.
Yeah.
That's not a shit on Rousey, but Rousey would be the second best ever for women's MMA, probably. And that just shows kind of that Amanda...
12-fight win
what
streak.
she's doing, is just so special. And every time she fights, I feel like... It's kind of like when Tyson would fight in the 80s and 90s.
It's so special.
Yeah,
when
it's a moment. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, I remember.
You're witnessing a once in a generation talent,
and I hope that I really hope that she can get like one more big fight that like a lot of people buy into because right now she's really just racking up dubs.
It's crazy, man. And go back to your pound for pound point. She is not only a champion in 2 weight classes, she's defending in both weight classes. She's defending multiple times in both weight classes. That was her 7th total title defense last night.
Yep.
She's unbelievable. Like I said, she was at one point 9-4. Now she's 21-4.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And if you look at the body of work, you're not going to find many resumes that are going to stack up like Amanda's does. Yep. And now it's time for her to go back down to 135, Noah, until we get another person at featherweight.
She has not defended the bantamweight belt since she last fought Holly Holm, right?
Yeah, and looks like we have a contender.
Jermaine Durand to me was at featherweight, correct? Or was that?
That was a bantamweight.
Okay.
Yeah. Felicia was featherweight.
So December 2019 was the last time we saw Amanda Nunes defend the bantamweight belt. And guess what? You had 1.5 years bantamweights to show that there's a real contender, and they still haven't.
Nope.
Because guess who's still at the top? Jermaine Durand to me.
And Holly Holm.
Holly Holm.
And they have to fight each other. That's
what
we said.
Fuck it. You called her out.
She gets it.
Juliana Pena.
Juliana Pena. Looks like she's going to get it. Judging off of the post-fight press conference, gentleman asked Dana White. So Juliana Pena is saying that her fight with Holly Holm got canceled. That's unfortunate, by the way. I was looking forward to that fight.
Yeah, I was too.
And Dana said, yeah, Juliana's been texting us all night, blowing up our phones. So, yeah, we'll probably do that. And he said they're looking to turn Amanda around quick, considering she got hit twice and she fought for a total of 2 minutes.
May.
And again, there's no title fight in May, ladies and gentlemen.
That's going to be the one.
So they're going to lob Amanda right there. Juliana Pena, ranked number 6th, but it looks like she's going to get what she asked for. Will she be ready? I guess you guys will have to find out when we break it down. But it looks like that's what's happening.
No.
Oh.
No, I mean, no disrespect to Pena, but...
Hey, but here's the fun thing about that fight, regardless of how it may go. Fresh matchup.
Yeah, that's what I care about, because I don't want to see her fight GDR again.
Yeah.
I don't want to see her fight Holly Holm
And
again.
for people, listen, I don't want to be mean. I'm sick of hearing about her and Valentina.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need this.
Yeah, can we talk about this?
Let's talk.
Because everybody keeps saying, Ariel Helwani tweeted this.
Everybody wants this fight.
That they want to see her versus Valentina for a third time. And I get it from the fact that these are...
the two greatest.
Well, Valentina probably is the second best women's fighter of all time.
Yeah.
Over Rousey. But...
it's...
And I guess she's been so dominant at flyweight.
It's not intriguing. Well, listen, we do trilogies when it's 1-1. It's 2-0. Amanda won both. I know the second one was close, and I tend to lean toward Valentina. It depends on when I watch the fight, to be honest. It was such a good fight. Valentina just isn't a natural bantamweight. She is a flyweight through and through, and it shows every time she goes out and fights. Amanda's fighting at featherweight now. She's huge. I'm not intrigued by this fight. This is? I know it's a battle.
This is Israel Adesanya versus John Jones to me at this point.
Yeah, now
where Valentina is clearly a 125er. She is perfect for that weight class. Yeah. She is amazing at that weight class. But if she goes up to bantamweight, she loses some of that.
Yeah.
Still good. Israel Adesanya goes up to light heavyweight.
Yeah, like Valentina at bantamweight still beats a lot of these women.
Maybe everybody, but
not Amanda. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of my
Listen,
point.
If there's a super fight you want for Valentina, well, we've given it to you multiple times on this. Tell them what it is.
Weili Zhang, if she defends again, if she beats Rose, and if Valentina beats Andrade,
that's the
fight I want to see.
women's super fight. Yeah.
And I feel like it won't happen because I don't think people, for some reason, nobody is talking about that. They're talking about Valentina and Amanda.
We don't need to see that.
And if I'm Amanda, what's the point in taking it? I would want to do it. I beat her twice.
Yeah.
So if I'm her, I just keep racking up. If she wants to keep fighting, just keep fighting.
Both of you. Valentina
because
and Amanda,
guess what? If Aspen Ladd gets in there and gets a win, she's right there.
It would be another fresh face.
And then you got Irene Aldana, you got Yana Kunitskaya.
Yes, exactly.
Ketlin Vieira's still out there. I mean, there's people that could literally win one or two fights, and they're at least
it's more so the featherweight portion. They kind of have to go one at a time.
If Holly Holm and or Jermaine Durandamy get a win or two, you can do that again. It just depends, and I'm sure that we're saying this, and one of these ladies could be the one that could crack the code.
You never know.
That's usually how it goes, right? It's
you never know.
When you least expect it. But right now, she looks completely unmatched.
Yeah. So
I think that's enough said on that. As for the loser...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's really...
I don't know. Well, so there's one other women's featherweight bout scheduled.
Yeah.
It's Felicia Spencer, who submitted Megan Anderson and lost to Amanda, versus Danielle Wolf, who, undefeated, former boxing world champion, fought in the Contender Series and had a win. So Megan's in an odd spot because I don't really know what they're going to do with this division. Dana's comments were a little interesting. It's just unique. Like,
he basically said,
if Amanda wants to keep defending the belt, then we're going to keep finding people. But it's like, okay, well, what about Megan? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I can't really matchmake.
I mean, she's 3-3 in the division.
I mean, do you give her the loser of Felicia and Danielle Wolf? Maybe, but if Felicia loses, then it's just a rematch, and that didn't happen.
I'll throw a fun one out there. How about she welcomes Kayla Harrison to the UFC once she decides to come over?
You and I both want Kayla in the UFC.
But Kayla Harrison probably won't be here for a while. So.
It'll be a while. If there is another super fight out there for Amanda down the line, that would be one.
This might be controversial to say, but it wouldn't surprise me if Megan Anderson got cut.
And it's not even because of her skill.
No.
It's because there's no division.
No.
They're literally they're just going one at a time.
She can't fight at bantamweight, and really
she's
big. The only fighters that fight at featherweight that are kind of value to the UFC are those ones that go back and forth between bantamweight and featherweight.
You know what I'd be intrigued for? What if she were to go to PFL and fight at lightweight 155? She's big. 6 feet tall, cuts down to 145.
I think it might be too late for her to get inserted there.
Maybe not this year, but just in general.
Yeah,
I
totally agree. It's a weird spot for her.
Does she go back to Invicta? I mean, she kicked ass in Invicta. So, hey, she's in a weird spot. It's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough. For Amanda, you're the GOAT.
Yep. Main event time.
Poland. The king of Poland.
Yeah, Polish Power, Jan Blachowicz wins it with his grappling.
Yeah.
And a big win for him over Israel Adesanya. Those scorecards, though, very interesting. We'll talk about that. What were your thoughts of this fight? This is going to be your
This is my fight of the night.
Yeah.
Rounds 1 through 3, man. Back and forth. You score it however you want. It's a toss-up. Razor thin, technical striking battle. Jan was able to go tit for tat. I thought he was going to be a little bit more aggressive, but he respected Izzy. And they both fought so similar, really. It was a very fun fight, very entertaining. Rounds 4 and 5. First half of the fight would be on the feet and played out much like rounds 1 through 3. Second half of both rounds 4 and 5 ended with Jan holding Izzy down, landing some ground and pound, nothing too significant, and stealing the round. So I scored it 3-2. I had Jan, round 1, 4, and 5. Izzy rounds 2 and 3. And, like I said, those rounds 1 through 3, it's a toss-up. You score however you wish.
I'm pretty sure I scored it the same as you, but our friends even had it different.
Yeah.
One guy had...
Maybe Izzy won round 1.
One guy had Izzy winning the fight.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have surprised me either way. These scorecards tell a different story, though.
Yeah, they said it was 4-1.
Yeah.
Plus
Dana caught him crazy.
Yes, he did.
The only round that I thought was clearly there's only 3 rounds of this fight that I thought had a clear winner. Israel round 3, and then Jan round 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Rounds 1 and 2,
Hey.
complete toss-up.
Yeah.
That's why when we were talking about it, even JP, you guys heard him on Friday, he was the one that scored Adesanya
3-2.
up 3-0 after the first 3 rounds.
He said the only 2 rounds he lost.
But he goes, it could very well be 4-1 Blachowicz here, too.
Yeah. Or 4-1 Izzy. He literally said, you adjust these rounds how you wish.
Well, you couldn't do 4-1 Izzy, in my opinion, because...
But yeah,
3-2 Izzy for sure. So yeah, it was a very close fight. I think the scorecards don't quite tell the story. The only round that I thought could maybe be a 10-8 was round 5. And that's only because of the finishing flurry Jan had on top. But this win, address again another elephant in the room.
Jan again.
This motherfucker, man. I'm buying a Jan Blachowicz t-shirt.
I think you should.
I think I owe it to him.
I think you do.
Because this man is on a 5-fight win streak, and I have predicted him to lose every single one.
Yeah.
And he has come out on top in all of them, finished 3 of 5 of them.
Yeah.
Clearly beat Adesanya, who people were ready to look at as like a top 10 of all time. And
undefeated, never lost.
Was about to reach superstardom. Jan Blachowicz is legitimate. And you know what? Best career resurgence of all time.
Yep.
One of my personal favorite fighters of all time is Robbie Lawler. He's had that throne for a while of the best career resurgence. Jan Blachowicz was 2-4 at one point in the UFC.
He's now won 9 of his last 10.
He's 11-6 now.
Yep. With a title defense.
Yep. And you know what?
Against an undefeated fighter.
I don't care if John Jones didn't lose. He vacated, goes to heavyweight, blah, blah, blah.
Jan is the champion.
Jan is the champion. He deserves to be the champion. He's the best light heavyweight in the world right now. And I just need to give him that respect because we both picked Adesanya. And, Izzy didn't look bad here.
No.
To me, where the fight, I guess, was most decisive anywhere.
He was on his back.
When he was on his back, Izzy's real main way to try to get out of, get out of being on the bottom was to, power his way out.
Like Derek Lewis.
However, Jan
that's where the size played in.
Jan outweighed him probably about 20
I'd say
pounds.
20 pounds, yeah.
And it was just clear Israel Adesanya is just a much more effective fighter at middleweight at this point than he is at light heavyweight.
And again, that could all change. But right now, again, it's a thing where he's going to have to really work on the physique and become a natural.
There was some great flurries in here, though. Israel hurt Jan a couple times, and Jan hurt Izzy just as much.
It was so fun on the feet.
There was a couple times that Jan looked a little staggered. Adesanya does have some. That striking is still as legitimate as you would
world class.
Think. But Jan Blachowicz showed me a lot here. It's not just Polish power is the fun thing, but it's kind of like the Trojan horse.
Yeah,
you got Polish power, but really the guy's grappling is great.
He's got more submission wins than knockouts.
Yeah, so that's what's so interesting, and people almost use that against him.
He has the highest takedown accuracy of active light heavyweights.
Yeah, that was said on the broadcast. That was an interesting point. He really looks like he's poised to kind of make a run here.
I think he can.
He's 38, but he looks fantastic.
People hit their primes at different points.
And the confidence has got to be growing for him.
Oh,
no. Going into this fight, it literally looked like it was kind of like a crowning moment for Adesanya.
Yeah.
That was kind of how it was billed as, and Jan was kind of, I don't want to say thrown to the side, but he wasn't, Adesanya is the bigger name, right?
Yeah.
Jan wins here.
He's a star. Not a superstar.
No, but
he's a star.
he's one of the best fighters in the entire UFC right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's next for these two?
The battle of who's going to have the best career resurgence ever. Because right now, Jan has it. But damn it, Glover Teixeira is coming for that crown and the light heavyweight title. The rightful number one contender made weight as a backup in the event this fight got scrapped. It's Glover Teixeira. And it's hopefully summertime. You got to agree, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm...
Got to be Glover.
So Glover Teixeira is clear numper one contender.
And I am intrigued by that fight.
Another guy who I've kind of counted out of his last few fights, I thought he'd lose to Anthony Smith. And he got hurt early, came back, dominated.
Same with Thiago.
Thiago Santos thought he was going to lose that fight. Got hurt early, came back.
And both of these guys been in the UFC in this division for years. Never fought each other. A fresh matchup and one that's very intriguing.
Also, real quick, credit to Jan for going 5 rounds for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
At least
Never looked tired either.
Well, he was that man was breathing heavy in round 5, but that's when the takedowns came into play.
Man, you want to talk about perfectly timed? Woo! He couldn't have timed those 2 takedowns.
His fight IQ is definitely unmatched here. On the other end, Israel Adesanya is still the middleweight champion.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give a clear name because you got 2 big matchups coming up, right?
Yeah.
So you got Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa, then you got Darren Till and Marvin Vettori. Someone in those 2 matchups is going to...
Someone's going to have to do something significant.
Yeah, because especially if you're Whittaker, Costa, or Vettori.
The only guy that could get away with just a win and maybe still get a title shot is Till. Yeah. And that's because he hasn't fought Izzy
And also
yet.
Israel really wants that fight.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm intrigued to see him and Vettori again if we ever get that.
Also, just want to put this out there. Wouldn't surprise me if another guy who has a fight coming up throws his name in there. Don't be surprised if Kevin Holland beats Derek Brunson if he's next for the belt.
You never know.
I know that
never know.
Ranking-wise, he might be a bit further down, but a guy that's made a lot of noise.
What if he starches him, And
remember how we all thought it was crazy when he was like talking shit to Israel after
now all of a sudden we're like, oh.
He might be a legit threat.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I don't have a clear name in mind. If I had to guess right now who I think he will fight next, I think it'll be a rematch with Robert Whittaker.
So the winner...
No.
So if Costa beats Whittaker, he won't fight Costa again. But if Whittaker wins, it'll be Whittaker for sure.
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying this is based off of kind of how I'm predicting these fights to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I'm saying that Israel Adesanya, I think, will be defending against Robert Whittaker next. Wouldn't surprise me if it's Till, but I think that Till-Vettori fight might be a bit more of a war. While I could see Whittaker starching Costa.
If Costa beats Rob, but Vettori beats Till, do we see Izzy versus Till instead of Izzy versus Costa?
You said Vettori beats Till?
Yeah, and Costa beats Rob.
Then you'll see Vettori, I think.
Okay, that's what I think too.
It's hard to predict right now because there's a lot of rematches in play. That's why don't be surprised if Kevin Holland also gets his name in there, or Derek Brunson for that matter, even though that would also be a rematch. Man, it's just...
Yeah, it's tough. He's literally ran through the division.
Yeah, really, you got Cannonier who's still coming off that loss, and we haven't heard much about him.
And Hermansson's off of a loss.
Hermansson, Darren Till, those are the 3 fresh guys in the top 6. So
it's tough.
So that's why Kevin Holland would be...
It's tough when you're great, I guess.
Yeah, so we'll see what's kind of next for him, but you know what? Why not Kamaru Usman go up and go for champ? I'm just... It's a really interesting time.
He's in a tough spot.
Yeah, I would be very... We might need to do a breakdown of that division here soon, but...
That could be fun.
we'll probably wait till after the month of April.
Yeah.
But that is it for our recap of UFC 259. A great night of fights. It's always fun watching fights.
Oh, yeah.
As for what's next, well, this week is a little extra special.
Yeah,
we do have a Wednesday episode. Don't quite have the
TBA.
To be announced.
Maybe that's more fun for them, where we just drop a surprise.
Yeah, maybe it is. So we will be coming to you on Wednesday. This is a 3-episode week. Friday, though,
we like this main card, don't we?
This main card was very good.
Yeah.
Headliner changes around. Hamzat, this was originally him versus Leon Edwards. He's out. Leon Edwards taking a fight that I was not expecting to see. Bilal Muhammad stepping in here.
Dare I say, a badass poster, by the way.
I do like the poster a lot. And I'm slowly getting more interested in this fight. I'm not, it's
just different.
It's different.
Nobody expected it.
You got to be happy for Bilal Muhammad to get this opportunity, and then for Leon just to get back in there. But that's going to be coming on Friday, along with...
Yeah, let them know, a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 6-fight main card, maybe 7
fights.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but I mean, you got fights like Eric Anders and Darren Stewart, Manel Cape versus Matthias Nicolau was another one you mentioned. Dan Ige, Gavin Tucker.
Hello, we just talked about that one.
Ben Rothwell, Felipe Lins, and obviously the co-main, Misha Serkinov, Brian Spann. Very fun fights on there.
That's a really good card.
So I'm very excited to break that down with you on Friday. 3-episode week, people. Strap in.
Yep.
But until then, Dominic Salee, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Twitter and Instagram at DSalee14. Find the podcast on Twitter, on Instagram at BAJ_MMA podcast.
As for me, if you go to my bio on Twitter or Instagram at ntbaker_, you'll be taken to our link tree, which gives you the links to all the platforms that the podcast is on, along with our social media platforms. That includes the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there, baby. And there's a couple links for the Anchor page. First, leaving a voice message. Something we really want to hit in 2021. You've heard Tyler's beautiful voice on here a couple times, along with JP.
Keep them coming.
If you would like to be featured, whether it be a question, a comment on a fight, news story, if you just want to say hi, tell us we're a piece of shit, you can do it there. And there's a link if you want to become a supporter of the podcast. That just provides us with a few dollars a month, and all that money goes back into improving the quality of the podcast, whether it be improving the audio equipment or down the line doing a video podcast. So again, you can find all that if you go to my bio on Twitter or Instagram at ntbaker_. But with that, we're out, and we'll see y'all on Wednesday.